Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast, where all accountants come to learn all the ways to grow your firm. And when you're in doubt, I am here to help you out. So if you're ready to learn and ready to grow your firm, then you're in the right place to sharpen your skills and increase your revenue. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is the co-founder and managing partner of Profit First Professionals. He has over 15 years of experience in managing organizational growth and built multiple companies in the staffing industry prior to launching Profit First Professional. He lives in New Jersey with his wife and their daughter. And I know some of you, being an accounting professional in this time, that you might be a little bit frustrated, a little bit overwhelmed, and slightly stressed, really trying to get the fees that you really want to charge and having no control over who you work with and how much you can charge. And you probably don't even believe that you can get someone to say yes to high monthly fees on an engagement base that you think a client can actually afford and pay you in these times. And you know what? It's really not your fault. There's really nobody training on how to fix those problems and connect the dots. So if you're interested in learning how to fix those problems, connect the dots, then you can book a free call with me at theabundantcall.com if you've been in business at least 2 years. So I can help you build your dream practice, work a lot less, and still have the time and money to enjoy with your family and your kids. So head on over to theabundantcall.com to schedule your free coaching session with yours truly or my teammate Denise. Today's episode is brought to you by Xero. As an accountant, when you join Xero, you'll gain access to a full range of practice management tools so you can manage your practice and your clients from almost anywhere. To learn more about building a better practice with Xero, visit Xero.com. That is Xero.com. Now, let's welcome Ron to the show.
Thanks, Michelle. Glad to be back.
It's awesome to have you here. And I know that in times like where we're in today, you and the Profit First community are so helpful and are such a great resource. So I know probably everyone listening knows you guys, but for those that might not know who you are, can you share, who you are and what you all do?
Sure. Ron Saharyan, co-founder of Profit First Professionals. We are a membership organization of accountants, bookkeepers, and financial coaches that subscribe to the Profit First cash flow methodology.
Awesome. Well, cash flow is of high importance to a lot of people listening today and all of their clients. And I know that prior to, starting today's podcast, we were talking about this evolve communication method. And I think we're going to really dive deep into that today to share with each of you listening how you can take this time to not only help your clients evolve, but also communicate to the best level in order to help them, which will help you create more abundance in your firm. So I'm super happy to have you on again today, Ron, and share your guys' wisdom because you and Mike are always coming up with the best stuff.
Well, thank you very much. And cash is king, as we all know, but in today's climate, conversation is key. And so one of the methods that we're teaching and learning even more is a method called the Evolve Communication Method. And we've broken that down into 6 blocks, if you will. Mm-hmm. The first block is empathy. Okay. And empathy is really key these days because, heightened awareness of what's going on. And I would want somebody to be empathetic with my situation, and my accountants and bookkeepers are. I mean, I called Kathy and I called Karen, and they were very empathetic to the situation. And we wouldn't want ourselves to be treated that way. And so here's a situation. One of our members over in Europe approached Mike and I with some concerns and questions and, basic, what I would say, knee-jerk reactions, right? And my initial response because I know this member very, very well, and would normally be to, come on, knock that off. You're overblowing it. It's not really that bad just yet. Your finances haven't been hit. But I'm thinking to myself, would I want to be spoken to like that? So I had to realize that it wasn't what she was asking for. It was that she wanted to be heard and know that we had her back. And so by empathizing and understanding really allowed that relationship to continue to flourish versus me not realizing or being as empathetic as I should be. And so that's the first key.
Yeah, no, it is the first key. So I know that one of the accountants listening right now is like, well, Ron, how did you show that you were listening to her and that she was heard and that you had her back instead of our traditional knee-jerk reaction? Because just like you have members calling frantic and you know her really well and you're like, well, this isn't it. For those that have never maybe read Chris Voss's book yet, Never Split the Difference, that talks all about empathy. How did you do it? What did you say to her?
Yeah, I love the book by Chris Voss. I'm actually looking at it. It's on my desk right now.
So good.
It is good. And one of the things that we've learned is to reiterate, acknowledge by restating what they're asking for, by restating what they're looking for. That's the number one thing that I would share that assures the other person that you are truly listening to the whole conversation.
Right. And I personally, that one thing that's helped me is I take notes. So, and allowing people to say, hey, I'm going to take some notes just to make sure I get everything of what you're saying today. So what was her challenge, if you don't mind sharing, where you were able to restate what she was looking for or reiterate and acknowledge so she felt heard and that she felt that you still had her back and now the relationship is still flourishing?
Right. So the question was along the lines of, I'm not going to be able to make this investment. Mm-hmm. And this was really early on. When I say early on, it feels like a year this has been going on.
This has only been 2 weeks ago, right?
2 weeks. And so and I do what you mentioned as well. And so as our member was speaking, I was writing the notes down and I simply said, I want to make sure that I have this correct. And I reiterated exactly what her points were as to why she was looking for a reduction or to cancel. And after listening, the business reasons were, in my opinion, not necessarily on target. It was a knee-jerk reaction. And so what we did is we just discussed it out. We talked about it. We dug deeper, to take a look at, okay, well, let's come up with a plan. Let's work on a plan. What happens if 10% of the revenue dips? What happens if 20%, 30%, 40, 50, 60, 70? Then at each one of those points of decrease, the business questions that we ask and the decisions that we make are going to be different. So by coming up with a strategic plan, I was able to help her say, okay, this is what we want to do, because you're going to make a lot different decisions at 70% reduction in revenue than you are at 5%. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And so one of the things is by this also, she left a feeling of a plan. I now have a plan, even though it was really roughed out. But these are the questions we want to ask. These are the decisions that we want to make. And it was a consultative call with her. And so, at the end, it was, hey, I love you guys. Thank you so much. We've got this. We're in this together.
Yeah, and she didn't want to reduce anything and she didn't want to cancel. And I think a lot of the accountants listening, from what I've heard, are afraid that some of their business clients aren't going to want them for, their profit first services or can them for bookkeeping or take a reduction. So I think this segues really well to, for those of you that might need to create a strategic plan, like, if the business loses 10%, what can you do? If the business loses 70%, it's going to be really different. And if you get these PPL and SBA and all these other opportunities and grants that are out there, it could be a different boat, but I think the clients need to feel like were heard and left with a plan.
Right. And piggybacking off of that, the next letter in evolve communication is the vision. And vision is more about what was the vision, or what is their vision that they're trying to achieve by this? What is a realistic outcome, yet positive outcomes that they desire? And so by working with your customers, okay, the vision that they had is still remaining. And so one of the techniques within the vision is to ask certain questions such as, in 10 minutes, if I proceed with this consideration, what are the impacts that it's going to have in 10 minutes? What is the impact it's going to have in 10 months? What is the impact going to have in 10 years? That's the vision. If I don't proceed with this particular consideration, what's going to happen in 10 minutes? What's going to happen in 10 months? What's going to happen in 10 years? And so by really working with them on what their vision is, tying it into their ask, or what considerations are going to happen, one immediately, because we have to look down the road 10 months from now, and also 10 years from now.
Yeah. And I think 10 months from now is really crucial, because I think that leads into one of your other letters for opportunity. And that, I know there's so much uncertainty and there's fear and people want to be heard, but the vision, like you said, be it in 10 minutes or 10 months or 10 years, is what impacts the other's decision making too.
Right. Absolutely. And that you hit the nail on the head. Opportunity. Okay. Oh, that's our third one, is opportunity. And we're not talking about being opportunistic. We're talking about what are the opportunities that we can do right now? What can we look to other than just cutting? Is there a way to improve efficiencies? Is there a way to improve technology? And what we're doing is communicating in a way where we're working to help them see that there is opportunity to fix the business. And it's a delicate balance. I mean, we want to deploy a balanced approach to defense and offense, meaning we just don't want to, be defensive. Right. And then you miss opportunity, but we don't want to be overly optimistic and stick our hand in the sand. And then next minute we know the company's out of business. Yeah. So by really looking at what some of the internal opportunities there are, it's also giving the business owner the confidence that you're actually riding shotgun with them through this.
Yeah, no. And I think this is a really important point. And I love how you said the defense and offense, because I've been really focusing on defense first, and then also on the offense, probably 60-40 split. But on the defense side, there's a lot of short-term opportunities that can help us. And then that will help the people, like especially for the accountants listening today, help your clients see how they can actually make their business more efficient in a time like today. I was talking to somebody and, their goal is always to be a virtual firm. Well, here's your opportunity.
Here you go.
Like for everyone who's been thinking about it. And if you read Chris's book, you can negotiate yourself out of a lease right now too. But, how do you get rid of the extra overhead that maybe isn't necessary? And I love how you said that. What's the percent of defense and offense that you and Mike are sharing with your members as, the frantic stuff is going on, and how to not be too, not opportunistic, like you said, right? But what can we do now and improve efficiencies?
Right. So some of the things we're taking a very measured and strategic approach to anything.
Of course you are. I wouldn't expect anything else from you guys.
Well, the opportunity is really for us to really share a lot of the teachings, to get information like this into the hands of not only accountants and bookkeepers, but for business owners. Like one of the things that, I'll get into it when we get to the values, but we want to make sure that, we're not going all in, and we're not, sticking our heads in the sand. I know I said that, and an example is, okay, well, we're going to be running a couple of ads. Well, let's really make sure that the tonality of the ads has the empathy in it. Let's make sure, and we're getting one or two opinions. We're not asking everybody in the company. We're coming up with an initial mock-up. Then I say it's sent to me. I say, okay, tweak it this, and then I send it over to Billy Ann to just for a final look-see from another set. And so then, okay, great, boom, here we go. And it took more time today to do this than it has ever taken us in the past, because we are being very cognizant of what we're doing, what we're saying. So that's how Mike and I are balancing it, not based percentage, but based upon what opportunities there are.
Yeah. And I think also, what you were saying, that this is an opportunity for you to share. It's like I know you have a webinar coming up. So anyone listening, if you want to go, where do they go for that, Ron?
They can go to profitfirstprofessionals.com.
Okay. So sign up there. If you miss it, you can watch the recording. But again, I think this is an opportunity to share. And it's funny you say that, because I was having a call with my accountability groups, and I was like, what else can I do to help them? And how can I take the month of April to share more with them and support, because everyone's just inundated with all these calls. And we came up with some efficient ways. And on Monday next week, I'm helping them go through an enrollment conversation on how to offer emergency cash flow packages and different offers to their clients, stuff that's brand new that wasn't here just 2 weeks ago, and coming from an empathetic place, like, I get it. I'll help you through this. And in the future, it'll pay off for everybody.
Right. And I think the other opportunity that I've often discounted leads us to the next letter.
Okay.
And that's L, listening. Listening. We can be of such great service by simply listening and giving our customers the safe zone to know that it's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay that you're feeling this way, right? It's not productive to keep these things bottled up. So if we can ask open-ended questions such as, how do you feel? What can we really realistically do about this? What has worked best in the past? These are open-ended questions that, not only shares that we're listening, but also opens the conversation up into who knows where it's going to take. But I really found that listening more and more and more these days is very, very powerful.
It is. And I actually did Chris Voss's in-person training.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. And when he talked about the listening department, I always talked about the 80-20 principle. So if you listen 80% of the time and you just talk 20, you're going to be in a really good position. And he took it to a whole nother level. He's like, it's more like 90% of the time you should be listening. And I think it goes hand in hand with the empathy.
You're absolutely right. One of the techniques that I'm using right now, I'm a professional sales guy. You're a professional sales expert. So it's very tough for us for me anyway, to, stay quiet. And so the technique that I personally use, I just bite my upper lip. I just hold that until the other person is finished speaking.
You want a Chris Voss trick?
What's that?
Stick a pencil in your teeth. It makes you smile.
Oh, nice. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So if you talk too much, just stick a pencil in your face so you're smiling. And then when the word does come out, you're going to start talking from a smile position.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I have actually a little smiley face on all my monitors just to make sure.
So cool.
Yeah. Well, optimism, in my opinion, is the only mindset of value. And that kind of segues to the second to last letter in Evolve, and that's V, values. And this is very important because our values drive our behaviors. We adhere to them, but often can forget them under distress. Right. And so one of the values that is very important to me is not taking advantage if you don't need the help. And so, there's been a lot of talk about rent reduction, foregoing rent. My landlord and I are buddies. He's been a great landlord. And there were talks about, a couple weeks ago, stop paying rent immediately, stop paying rent. And while that is an often in these markets or these climate, a great situation, we weren't in a position to ask for that yet, and hopefully never will be. And so I would feel that, was I tempted to pick up the phone and say, hey, Steve, you know what, man? Listen, I don't know if we're going to make it out of here. I need to pause our rent. I need a reduction in rent.
Yeah.
But I knew that we had rent already allocated. We have a rent account, and it was flush for the month of April and May. And so, I'm paying April. I'm paying April at rack rate, full rate. Now, does that mean May's going to be full rate? Probably not, considering that my company hasn't been able to use the rent for 2 to 3 months.
Right.
But immediately, sometimes, our values can be compromised under distress. So know that. And so, when sometimes people suggest to do things that sound good, let's just take a step back. Let's make a measured, data-driven decision.
Yeah. And data-driven decisions by your bank accounts.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, Ron, I have a question. If you aren't able to make your May rent, what do you recommend? Because I'm just curious, because I want to learn something from you too. And I know everyone who has a brick and mortar business, or even their rent on their rental, where they live, their houses, their mortgages. How would you communicate that you need to be able to reduce your rent, or maybe even have a forgiveness for a month or two? What are you going to say, and how are you going to structure that conversation to have it encompass everything in this evolve formula?
Right. I'm going to share with Steve that I understand his business is not necessarily doing well as ours, that my vision, long-term vision, is to remain in his building, and that, there's going to be opportunity from the government to potentially make small businesses whole, whether it's through this or that. And, I'm going to him with an ask based upon, hey, Steve, I've just gone over our financials. We've lost X amount of revenue here. We haven't been able to utilize the office since this date. I'm sorry to have to do this, but I'm going to be foregoing paying rent because I need that opportunity for the survivability of my household.
In Chris's book, he calls that accusation audit, right? So sharing with him that you understand that his business isn't even great, and that he's probably struggling and he's having a challenge. So for the accountants listening, even sharing that, with your landlords is important, and that everyone's in it together, but the government has to make this whole. It just is a matter of time, and probably cleaning up all the messes with the PPL and SBA. I was filling all these papers out yesterday, Ron. I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, keep in mind too, is that this isn't necessarily free money. I mean, if your business hasn't been adversely affected at X percent, well, then you're going to have to pay that back. And so, making sure that the loan that you're going for is in true need. My position is, hey, let those that really, 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 really need it go to the front of the line, and that if I can keep holding on the best I can, then, I'll go for the handout when necessary. I don't want to just stockpile it just to have it.
It's like all the people stockpiling paper towel and toilet paper. I went to Target the other day. I was like, wow, everything's gone.
I went to our local Walmart, and there was toiletries on the shelves. There was toilet paper, not a lot, but there was no lines, and people weren't scrambling for it. And,
Wow.
Yeah, I just took what I needed.
Right. Yeah. Just take what you need, and the people that need the most help go to the front of the line, and everyone else, like you said, I think everyone will come whole. Well, Ron, thank you so much for this insight today. Is there anything else that you'd love to share about Evolve or, any of the other letters or a story that popped into your mind that would be really helpful for someone listening today?
Yes, the last letter.
Yes, the experience.
Yep. And what I've learned, whether it's from, a sports perspective, a coaching perspective, a management perspective, that sometimes giving advice builds resistance. Hearing in situations like this, you should have done this. You should do this. I suggest to you. It means the person hearing that has already failed to do it. So instead, we like to frame it with, in my experience, this has worked well for me. In my experience, I did this. Or in similar situations, when Irma hit and Sandy hit and the floods in Houston hit, my company did this. So there's a lot of experiences that we've had through natural disasters. Okay, and economic turmoil from, the banking crisis. Never on the scale of this, but there has been catastrophes in the past where accountants and bookkeepers have provided great advice, and they can share those experiences and relate it to themselves. So the Evolve method of communication: empathy, vision, opportunity, listening, values, and experience. And Michelle, I'll be more than happy to send you a PDF of this chart right here that I'm reading, so that all your listeners can have a copy of it as well.
That'd be great if you could put it on a URL, and then for all of you that are listening, just click below in the show notes, and then we can take you to that PDF, or it'll be on my website. So Ron, if you've got it on yours as a linkable PDF, that would be great. So thank you so much, Ron, for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It's always fun to have you, and I know you and Mike are always coming up with great ways to help the accounting community, and it's an honor to have you.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, Michelle. I mean, listen, I know how good you are, how great your services are. Our members use you. You've come to ProfitCon, and you're coming again.
Yes.
And I mean, keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate those kind words, and I'll get this episode up to you all as quickly as possible with that PDF chart. And thanks, Ron, for being here, and stay safe and healthy.
You too. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you all so much for joining Ron and I today on another episode of the Abundant Accountant podcast. And remember the Evolve method, not only in times like this, but also in the future. This is a recession-proof formula. Empathy, vision, opportunity, listening, values, and experiences will help you even further past today. And if I just share with you from the sales side perspective, and we're mentioning the book, Never Split the Difference, written by Chris Voss, which is probably one you should pick up. The empathy and the listening and, sharing your experiences and how it's supported you to help your clients is king right now. And as Ron said in the way beginning, if you remember, conversation is king. And we always say cash is king. And you've probably heard it from me multiple times that, the first thing on your P&L is revenue or sales, but we can't have any of that if our conversations aren't in place. And the fact of right now and in the future to have a recession-proof way to communicate with your clients, I would grab a pen and paper and hit rewind and listen to today's episode one more time. But remembering that conversation is king. And if you're having any challenges with your conversations, or maybe you're frustrated and stressed because you're doing so much work, but no one is willing to pay you truly your value or your worth. I get it. I've had a lot of frustrated clients, and one of them most recently, his name is Jonathan. He sent me an email today, and the email today said he lived in the world of scarcity. He lived in the world of that he couldn't afford anything, and he broke through that about a year ago, and now he's able to charge just $1,000 just for a consultation call, or even upwards of $20,000 for an engagement. So if you're having those challenges or thoughts and really want to get good at the conversation department now so you can capitalize on the other stuff in the future, then head on over to theabundantcall.com. You can schedule your free coaching session with yours truly or my partner, Denise. We'd be happy to, get to the truth of where your conversations with your clients is going south. So ultimately, you can build a dream practice, work a lot less, and increase the time and the money that you have in order to spend more time with your family and kids. So once again, head on over to theabundantcall.com to schedule that coaching session. The only thing I ask is that you've been in business at least 2 years. You've had clients walk away, or you've had that feeling that you have to discount your services in order to get a client. So if that's you, head on over to theabundantcall.com. Also, thank you so much for leaving all your amazing written reviews. I appreciate those, and it helps other colleagues of yours find this podcast. So keep helping, keep serving. Remember, your conversations are king, and listening 90% of the time. And how can you show a little empathy today? Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Today's episode was brought to you by Xero. Remember to visit Xero.com. That is Xero.com. Xero provides the tools and human touch to manage all the elements of your practice, including a dashboard with a clear and centralized financial overview, the ability to collaborate in real time with clients, smart customized reports with links to source transaction, and free 24/7 support. Once again, Xero.com. That's Xero.com.